Okay, we're live. So hello everyone and welcome to episode 4 of my Instagram live interview series. As you can tell, I'm trying a new method of hopefully blocking out background noise, and I'm just seeing how it goes. So tonight I'm bringing on young genealogist and partner in crime with Hidden Branch with me, Tyler Truong, and I will try and go live with this. Got something. Oh, and we're going.
Yeah, we're here. All
Hello.
right. Hello, Daniel.
Hi, Tyler. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Eh, fine. I typically say cope as a joke, but yeah, I'm good this time around. So
That's nice to hear.
I, I figure I might as well let you start off by introducing yourself to those who don't know you.
Hi, everyone. My name's Tyler. I'm 16 years old, and I've been doing genealogy for a little over 3 years. And I run the Him branch with Daniel and some other people who are teenagers and love genealogy. And I also run my own blog group, or my own blog, and it's called Tyler's Lineage.
Right, and I think the big question is, I forgot my question sheet. I've just remembered that. Oh, no, I haven't. Never mind. So how did you get yourself into genealogy?
Well, I had been interested in genealogy sometime before I started properly researching. I would say I was about 10 when I started asking my great grandparents, my grandparents questions on where we were from and stuff. And I was really interested in taking a DNA test because my dad is Vietnamese and my mom is Caucasian American. So my heritage has always been something I've kind of been interested in. So I took a DNA test with two companies, Ancestry and 23andMe.com, before doing research because I wanted to see if the results would be different. But how I actually got into genealogy research, I was 13 years old, and my middle school had taken me on a field trip to the city library downtown, and there they had a genealogy lab that they showed us, and it was super cool, and my sister agreed to take me there once a week so I could do my homework and do my genealogy research. And that's really how it began.
That's nice. I mean, my library could do with one, but I mean, with whatever, with COVID going on now, you can't do much. So it's
Yeah,
all online and you can't go to places at the moment, but hopefully that'll change, like I've always said. So,
hopefully.
yeah. So, is there any resources that you've used in your research that you found helpful?
Lately now, I mostly use Ancestry.com and not my heritage, Family Search for my genealogy research, tracing my family. But what I feel like has been a big resource for me is just talking to my family because I actually have been pretty lucky and I have met all four of my mom's grandparents, my great grandparents. And although one of them died before I started researching, I was able to interview them, talk to them about their family tree, and even just other family members, like my great aunt. I used to call her every week and ask her about this new thing in the family I'd found out, and she was always super helpful to me and would tell me what she knew, stuff like that. So I feel like my family has really helped me a lot and has been very supportive.
Well, that does help when you have family that do tell you stuff. Now, unfortunately, when I started, I only had one grandparent. So
Mhm.
one side I was I didn't know much on. So it was through, but thankfully that you could say that was made up for with the book that I got from my mother had a book with info that my grandmother, who had passed away,
Mm.
had given her about the family, and that kind of helped me over that side of the family. So
Oh, like
that
a family Bible.
definitely did help.
Like, yeah.
So obviously, I know one. I think I know another. Correct me if I'm wrong, but are there any projects or ventures that you're currently doing?
Well, obviously I do like the hidden branch stuff with you and,
Yeah.
the rest of the gang. And as you may know, I start my own blog this month, although I haven't gotten a post out yet. I wanted to do one every month, but I started this new semester and things just sort of got kind of busy, so I haven't gotten around to do that. I maintain, my social media pages. I try to get like a post out every once in a while, such as my recent post where I had my dad's school picture from like 30 years ago when he went to the seminary. And I also do like family tree of friends. Like I've done like grandparents. Like I researched like my friends' grandparents for a couple of my friends, and they really appreciate that. And my new sort of project has been I want to start a genealogy club at my own high school. I I want to call it Griffin's Genealogy because my high school's mascot is the Griffin. Although I have been holding that off sort of because it would basically be me teaching a whole sort of mini course on how to get people interested and started with genealogy. And I feel like it sounds cool, but I feel like it would be kind of stressful, and I feel like I might not need that right now.
It, you'd think it would be stressful. Now, I would tell you, so like my own, not so much experience, but kind of, I had done, for those who didn't know, I tried doing a school genealogy club in my school. And
Hmm.
for about maybe 5 or 6 weeks up until like obviously COVID happened in Ireland and everything was just shut down. I had tried doing it for about 5 or 6 weeks, and nobody came. So I wouldn't take my example as I wouldn't let that deter you anyway. Like it's definitely
Hmm.
one to know because like I know some people will say don't teach it at schools, don't do it at schools, but it's like you're not going to please everyone. I
Yeah.
think so. Like do it, and honestly, don't let anyone deter you because that's what I had done a few times. But
Hmm.
don't do it because like I done classes with my history class as well. They went fine. Like a good few people, I've helped them do their own family trees with them. So like a good few people were interested, and I think they are interested in learning more. But
Yeah, I feel like. Oh, sorry.
no, what were you going to say? I was going to apologize for ranting on. That's all I was going to do.
Oh no, it's all right. I was just
Uh,
gonna say how like I feel like I do have a solid amount of support right now from my club. Like I had talked to some people, in the main office about it. They seemed very excited about it. They were like, "Go ahead, do it, Tyler." And I already have a teacher who was willing to moderate the club, which is exciting because it's
yeah.
actually my favorite teacher. And usually when I talk to my friends about like my genealogy stuff, which I try not to because sometimes I feel like if I go unchecked, I shove genealogy down people's throats. So,
Sometimes you
but
need to.
they seem pretty interested. So I feel like I might get a few guys to show up, a few people.
You might. Like, I don't see why you wouldn't anyway. Like, I think the people watching now would kind of go like, why haven't you done one already? I'd
Yeah,
say that would be the general consensus on that. But so obviously you said you've been doing it for 3 years. If I
yes.
is there anything that you learned now that you wish you had learned at the start?
I would say one of the biggest things was being organized. I wish I knew that I should have been more organized. And actually, in the beginning, it was funny because in the beginning, I didn't really care a lot about like most of the genealogy info because partly how I started my research also was I took my mom's high school project family tree from like 1994 or something, and all she had on it was the person's name and the year they were born. And I thought that's all the info you need. So I didn't care about when their birthday was, where they're from, when they, passed away, where they got married, any of that. I just was interested in like what year were you born? And I that's where it got me to like add some people who didn't actually belong in my family. Like I would research, add like false branches, and so that was kind of a big mess in the beginning.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
I actually, oh sorry,
Well,
I
that was.
actually I actually wish I had started a little bit earlier, like
Mm,
maybe when I started to become interested when I was 10, because my for the first like 10 years of my life, my grandmother's grandmother was actually alive. She she lived to be 101, and she lived until I was 10. So I feel like if I had started earlier, I could have maybe asked her a little bit about her life, or maybe like asked her like what she knew about her family.
mm,
But, I was 10, so I didn't really realize I could have taken that opportunity, I guess.
mm. One comment came in and said, "I agree. Just start doing it and keep going, and people will gradually take interest and join in. So that'll
Mhm.
be to do with your club." And he's right. Ben is
Yeah,
right. You just need to, get it off the ground, get it going, and then just people will then start seeing it and then join
yeah.
in. Like for all you
Advertisements.
know, this club in your school, like for all you know. Might
Yeah.
over sports. You never know. Take a bit of work, but you never know. So what aspect of genealogy would you say you like the most? So, like hearing stories, looking at old photos, looking at documents, that kind of a thing.
When I looked over this question, that was one of the harder questions to answer because I like so much with genealogy, but I really like photos and recipes and heirlooms. When my great grandmother passed away, my great aunt, she gave me a lot of family recipes and like family photos because she knew I liked them so much, and it was so many. Like I'm still like going through all those, and I got those like nearly 2 years ago.
Mm.
I'm also a big fan of stories and like family tales, things like that. Like my grandpa, he would tell me a lot of like stories about his dad, and he would get into some crazy stuff, but I think we're going to talk about that later down the interview. I
Ah,
also am a big fan of DNA results. As you mentioned, I did a DNA test, and I even got a DNA results hoodie for Christmas. And one thing I've recently like realized how interesting it is like journaling.
mm-hmm.
Recently I've been reading my my mom's journal that she kept when I was like a little kid. And I don't know, it's just interesting to read because I see like like her handwriting with everything. And recently, right now I'm in about the summer of 2006, and an interesting story that I read was during that time like a huge storm just like struck the town that I lived in, and like the power was out everywhere for like a week. Like trees were down, collapsed in the streets, no one had power. Everyone, all the food in people's fridges like started to rot, like the meat and stuff. And my
Mm.
mom had to drive like 2 miles and wait like an hour in line to get like fuel and like dry food and stuff. And I didn't even know that. And I was I lived through that, so I think it's just writing, seeing people's writing truly brings back the stuff you forget.
Yeah.
So I just think that's cool.
Going back to when you were talking about heirlooms, one of our viewers is actually doing an Instagram live series on heirlooms. So
Oh
for all
really?
you may be getting a message from her. And for any of you that don't know who it is, it's Shannon, who I had on last week.
Oh,
Uh,
that'd be great.
there you go,
Yeah.
Shannon, another guest for you. Uh, so is there an interesting story or event you've come across in your family history?
Now I came up with a good list for this question too. So as you may remember, or I just mentioned, I had met my grandmother's grandmother.
Hmm.
So I didn't really, when I was a kid, I didn't really think of it as like super weird because I just sort of like went with the flow with it, you know. But looking back now, I think it was a really cool experience for me because she was born in like April of 1914, and she was the only person I had ever met and like knew that lived before World War One. And
Hmm.
so I think that's just a really cool story that, you know, I had the opportunity to meet someone who lived so long ago, you
Oh,
know,
it's
back when.
like it like, and even hearing, like you hear of stories of like old, it's like people who live to a grand old age, and you kind of think,
Yeah.
wow, they actually lived through, this event and that event, and also that event, and yeah, it is just surreal when you kind of hear what they might when you think about what they would have actually lived through and heard about and seen and anything else and heard.
Yeah, all that history. That's partly why I take such an interest in vampires because, like, you know, just the idea of living for like 500 years, seeing all that technological advancement, history, all that.
I,
My
I think Shannon will actually take you up on that. Just reading that. Anyway, you were saying.
my dad's journey is also a pretty interesting one. He was born in Vietnam, and when he was about 10 in the year 1984, my parents actually, or no, not my parents, my grandparents actually decided to escape Vietnam because we weren't being persecuted or anything, but my family didn't like the communist regime, and my family was Catholic, so you know the communists weren't really too encouraging of that. So we we left the country on a fishing boat and just went out into the middle of the ocean just to get away. And what ended up happening was we got rescued by an Indonesian like shipping boat, and that night there was like a big storm. And when my family came out from sleeping in the morning, they realized that the boat that they were on was just gone. So basically, if they hadn't found that Indonesian shipping boat, they would have died out at sea. And so they were taken to, I believe, an island off the coast of Singapore, where they lived there for about a year, and they got approval to come to the U.S. And so they landed in Seattle, and then they moved to San Antonio to live with my uncle who had already come to the U.S. So there's obviously a lot more details with that and the struggle that of planning all that out. I think it's just incredible, and to
Yeah,
you know me like, still have my grandparents around to with them about it.
that does sound like, even in the news that you hear today, um, it's just a story that you hear like on the news, so like immigrants coming from other countries, and it's just so like you just hear the story of, like, to hear that story is kind of
Hmm.
surreal, scary, and also, what would be the word, inspiring, because
Yeah.
because they went through all that and they eventually got to where they eventually got to where they went.
Hmm. And obviously, I want to like write more about that journey, like on my Instagram page or like in my blog. But sometimes I feel discouraged because I don't want to miss like the little details. You know, I feel like like my summary of it wouldn't do it justice. So I've sort of been putting that off.
Fair enough.
Some other some other stories I wanted to bring is I mentioned that I talked to my grandpa about my great grandpa, and boy was my great grandpa was a character. He had like he has a number of funny stories from like you know shooting a telephone pole outside a bar to test out a shotgun. What's another one? One time he bought 100 chickens, but because he had a farm, but he couldn't bring them to the farm, so he decided to put them all in his basement. And so my great grandma woke up one night and she's like, Charles, why do I hear a bunch of chickens in the basement? And he's like, "Oh, I just bought a bunch of chickens."
Oh, I would not like to have been your great grandmother. I would
Well,
not
yeah,
be in that position. Oh my. Um, is, is
eventually.
there a particular record you like more than others, and why?
I really like immigration records because I think they're, for me, they've really been really rare to come across because like my immigrant ancestors have been kind of hard to research.
Hmm.
Like when I found my German ancestors like ship records when they came to the US, like that was just really cool to see their name. Or even my dad's naturalization record from like the year 2000. Like I just think that seeing that document is really cool. And I
Hmm.
also am a big fan of yearbooks, like school yearbooks, because they're like relatively new and you can see like, a lot of pictures. I have my mom's yearbook yearbooks from when she was in high school in the 90s, and I like seeing all the 90s cars, the hairstyles, how they dressed. It was really cool.
Yeah, I
And
don't
I
have any
also
who I could look at that because uh, anyone that would have kind of went over would have, graduated in. Well, actually, they would have graduated in Ireland and then immigrated, so they wouldn't necessarily have been um, in school in America. So that wouldn't have happened for me anyway.
mhm.
Sound
and I
that
also
would
find
be interesting. That would definitely be interesting.
and I also find divorce records pretty interesting because like you hear a lot about marriage records and birth records, but you don't hear a lot about divorce records, and it's kind of just interesting for me when I did genealogy to realize how like divorces still happened back then, like in the 1800s and stuff. I had come across an ancestor who, or a couple, my like great 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 something grandparents, and I
Hmm.
found their divorce record, and I feel like it was just really interesting to see like why they weren't happy in their marriage and like why they decided to split. And the wife ended up actually moving to like a couple counties over, so it just shows how like divorce wasn't really um, something that was accepted back then.
I
So
just comment here from Ben. The 90s were the best. And Ben, I'll let you in
yeah,
on a secret. Half of my music is from the 90s that I listen to regularly. I'm
oh
not
same.
I'm not big on the I'm not big on the modern music. So there you go. Didn't That thing you didn't know about me. So what does genealogy mean to you?
Genealogy is obviously it's sort of been like a big hobby for me, and like I almost see it almost like as my life's work now.
Hmm.
Because like I have like the Ham Branch blog and like my own blog and just stuff I do online, and even now it's sort of how like I connect with some of my friends, like you or PJ or Emmy or Emily or the people from the group. So I feel like it's really cool that I have like people I can talk to about genealogy
Hmm.
and like connect with them on that. And it could also be a possible career path for me. I'm not quite sure exactly if I want to go professional because there's just not many universities out there that teach genealogy as a major, which I think is kind of sad because you can learn about so many other obscure topics at colleges, but
Oh
not
yeah.
genealogy.
Just reading here,
Yeah,
and
so yeah.
it says, agreed, divorce records are fascinating and quite brutal too. So Ben does agree with you on your point about divorce records.
hmm
So obviously this one, especially for like obviously uh, someone in the same age range as me, like you, I like asking
hmm
this. What advice would you give to a young person starting out in genealogy?
I would say don't be like embarrassed that you like genealogy. That's sort of I was sort of felt like especially in middle school that was something I sort of felt like I didn't want to sort of talk about it, but now I'm a bit more open to it,
Yeah.
and like also just sort of the advice that I wish I knew when I was younger, like how staying organized, because I feel like people our age are kind of not super organized usually, but
No.
so yeah.
So if any, now I'm almost done as, well, you could argue that I am almost finished with my questions. So if you guys have any questions that you'd like to ask, please do so now. Now I'm going to ask this one because I saw it early on and I don't want to miss it. Because
The
oh,
Bavarian flag one.
it's me. Where is it? Uh, yes. So Gonzalo Luengo, did
Hmm.
Tyler explain the Bavarian flag behind him, and does he have Bavarian roots?
That's honestly, yeah, I have that flag by it. It's funny because I don't actually have any Bavarian roots. My German ancestors are from Hessen-Baden, but I think I was at just like sort of like a outlet mall, and I bought a flag because I was also into geography. So I just bought a couple flags one time, and that one I just thought looked cool, so I hung it up in my room. But I probably have some distant ancestors that were from Bavaria, so
Okay,
who knows?
another one is what's the most in oh whoops, one again. What's the most interesting information you have found during your research?
Oh, hey, Grandma. um, so I guess I've also found some pretty interesting, like, distant ancestors. Like, my 12th great grandfather was the founder of Rhode Island in the US. And what I really like about him was he was an Englishman, but he came to the US and he was actually pretty kind when it came to dealing with the Native Americans. He bought Rhode Island from them instead of taking the land.
Hmm.
So I admire him for that. And my other 12th great grandfather was the last man in England to be burned at the stake for heresy. So learning about his life has also been interesting. His name was Edward Whiteman, and he preached that I think it was like the Trinity wasn't like real, and like he had some other like profound beliefs which the church didn't exactly approve of. So yeah, it was interesting seeing the his death warrant, and it was signed James, King of England, in 1612.
Wow, I'm amazed you can even get back that far to your 12th great grandfather. I'd say the furthest I got back is my third or fourth, not even anywhere
Mm,
remotely close to you. But anyone that does have Irish ancestors will share the pain with me in this that
mm.
you don't get back very far.
Yeah,
uh,
English
especially,
records are great.
yeah. Civil records, obviously, civil registration in Ireland started in 1864. I almost said three. I made that mistake before. In 1864, and before then, the best bet you had was through church records. So, not the best for me, especially when you want to get back far. But I mean, I'm
Oh, I
happy.
like.
I've gone fairly detailed. So another one came in. Oh,
Mm.
hello, Gonzalo again. Do you have a clear, distant family relation with a celebrity? If you more than one, what's your favorite celebrity distant relative?
One that comes to mind right off the top of my bat is he. I think of him a lot because he actually shares my mother's maiden name. He's related on my grandfather's side. He was a I forgot his name, but he was governor of Kansas during like the 50s and the 40s. So that was just cool, like just finding that out. I wasn't really something I was expecting doing researching some cousins over there. So trying to think of any one more. I kind of don't think so.
Well, I'm
Maybe someday I'll find someone
not
else.
famous relatives. Like I'm not related to like Tom Cruise or something. Like I'm not. I haven't come across that yet.
Oh, actually, now that I think about it, I am distantly related to Abraham Lincoln. Like one of my where we shared his my 12th great grandfather is like one of his ancestors too. but it's not like one of the ones I mentioned. It was like a different guy.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
uh, Still not envious of you, internally. So I think I may wrap it up. Oh, sorry,
Oh, one more question.
I only saw this one. Sorry, Penny. How would you consider researching your Vietnamese family history? Does their culture create records like the Western countries?
My Vietnamese research has actually been one of the hardest parts of my research because they don't really have good records because it seems like every other decade they get invaded by someone new, so that's something they have to deal with. But I think I do actually have somewhat of a shot because my dad's mom, my paternal grandmother, her family was Catholic, Roman Catholic, and I think if I go to the parish that they went to, and like maybe there'd be a chance that there'd be a baptism record, or I can go to the cemetery and see. But my grandfather's family was Buddhist, so I don't think there's really much there besides asking like my family about like the past. So yeah, it's unfortunate, but it's just the way it is, I guess.
So you kind of relied more on, let's say, oral history for that side.
Yes, yes, yeah, definitely oral history and stories and stuff.
Yeah,
I
and
actually came across a ghost story over on that side of the family.
yeah, and sometimes oral history is kind of sometimes the more like in it seems more enticing when you kind of hear like someone telling the story to you rather than trying to trace it to a record. I'm not saying I don't like doing that, but just kind of hearing like, let's say my mother tells me like a story of one of my ancestors, and let's just say my mother tells me a story of one of my ancestors, and um it could be like one I haven't heard before, and so like it just kind of adds a perspective. Like, for example, one of the siblings of my grandmother had passed away quite young, the age of 22. But it was a case of like no one had actually known much about her. Like, and the one thing that's and one thing I remember seeing on Twitter fairly recently was someone tweeted saying, I heard this from someone saying, "You're not dead until uh, unless you're forgotten. Like if you're not
Yeah,
remembered in some way, uh, then you technically are dead." But
yeah,
like the thing that scared me about the sibling was that she didn't marry, she didn't have any kids, but she has three other siblings who all had kids, who then had
mhm,
kids, most of them. And none of them knew her birthday. They knew all the other siblings, but they didn't know her birthday. And
mhm,
I could find the common as muck name wherever, like where she was from in Dungarvan, County Waterford. And she, uh, like, I have her in my tree. I have her as about 1925. I don't even know if she was born in
mhm,
1924 and hadn't turned 23 yet, or she was born in 1925 and had just turned 22 or something. Like, I don't know. I'm
mhm.
still a bit dodgy on the ear. But the thing is, nobody in now on my mother's side knows her birthday. So it
Mhm.
kind of was shocking in the sense that you never, in a way, she kind of died a little because
Yeah, yeah,
no one actually kind of knew much about her story. And it was like one cousin of mine knew so like a bit of a story behind her and her life, and kind of near, the end of um uh just saw this Gonzalo's, thank you. It was actually Coco. I saw that in.
I was gonna
Uh,
say that. Yeah.
I couldn't think of it for a second. But like only one cousin mainly knew a little bit of a story about him. So it was just that kind of drove me more to try and find more out about her in a way.
Yeah, discover about her.
Just as an off-topic point, this is your day. For those who are watching this in the future, this is your daily reminder to start writing names and details on the back of your photos. Because my grandmother
Oh yeah,
left multiple albums. Some photos she labeled, others no. So it's a case of kind of going like, does she have a family resemblance? I don't know. So,
who does she look like?
oh yeah, who does she? Is that my grandmother? No. Is that her brother? Not 100% sure. Label your photos. Thank you. And back to the interview. So yeah, it just kind of drove me more to learn more about her family and just try and preserve it.
Yeah, yeah, I feel the same way. A lot of my family, it's just, especially on my Vietnamese side, it's just you just have like a photo and like a name on the back, but it's just like that's it. That's all that's remembered about them. And yeah, like the Coco movie, it's like they're almost like that's when they almost like really die, is when no one like remembers of them anymore.
Yeah. I'm just looking up here. Penny, I just saw your point. Language. I think that might be relating to her question about your Vietnamese research. Possibly something to do with maybe language. Is
Yeah.
there a barrier maybe? I don't know if she's still here, she might be able to clear that up. But just going while we're waiting, another point, Gonzalo said, right, at least Catholic Church, by official agreement since 1563, kept sacrament records like baptism records all over the world, no matter the local culture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Catholic records are pretty good.
Another point he made was, as a Catholic and genealogist, I asked my parish to celebrate masses on death anniversaries of my ancestors who passed away 3 centuries ago or more. And
Oh,
another
wow.
question, yeah, Gonzalo, kudos to you that you can get back that far. I envy you. And another question coming
Yeah,
in,
that's awesome.
how do you suggest the older, can talk. How do you suggest the older generation now preserve important family info or stories for future generations?
Oh, yeah. This actually brings up a project I forgot to mention. This summer, I'm going to be taking my great-grandmother, who's 85, to her hometown in Illinois, rural Illinois, and we're going to be, like, filming her outside her childhood home, her parish, where her grandparents lived. So that's just, like taking the older generation to where they lived and writing their stories or recording them somehow. Would recommend. I'm not sure what's going on with Daniel. There's a little.
Or has been. You keep talking. I can still hear you, even if you can't really see much.
Oh, that's good. That's really all I had to say on that, I think. And as for language, I would say it has been communicating with my grandparents. English was their second language. It was a little bit tricky, or with like my great aunts and uncles, but I would say it hasn't been too difficult. It was a bit of a challenge, I guess, to read my grandparents' marriage certificate, which was, in fully Vietnamese. I had to get my dad to help me there.
Another point, I think the format of records is so similar in every country that no matter the language, you are able to understand them.
Yeah, you gotta just translate.
And I know, I've seen some Instagrammers just kind of, I know Catherine Schober is the first one that jumps to my mind. She does this, she used to do this German word a day. So like what you'd find in like German certificates and things, like that bit does help. With Ireland, now with Ireland, all their records are in English, so you can understand them. They're not like they're in Irish or something or Gaelic or something. They're in English, so you can, as long as you can speak it, you can understand them. And like for me, I haven't, like I've said many times, my ancestry is quite. I don't want to say plain. It's a case of I don't have, let's say, an elusive French ancestor or something that I have to read their documents in French or something. They were all either in County Mayo or County Waterford or Limerick.
Well, at least you have a strong connection to one place. I feel like that'd be kind of nice to know.
Oh yeah, like whenever COVID is over, I'm definitely gonna try and find where my ancestors' homes might have been, and try and just walk, not so much walk in the footsteps, but just kind of go to where they were. Because, like there's one place in Mayo called Kilchima, which is where my dad's roots are very strong in. It's Kilchima and the surrounding area. So you can go from to Swinford to what's the other place? Treen Duffer Behola, one of them. Like that they lived like one part, each part of the family lived in one different part around Kilchima. And my mother's side, on one side it's all Dungarvan, on the other side it's a little bit of Limerick mixed in with a little bit of, and then jumps back to Waterford again. So, like, it's handy in the sense that I don't have to go like jumping around all of Ireland trying to find people. They tended to be in one specific place, which did help. Some of them are still giving me the runaround, and I've been at this for 4 years. The elusive ancestor with the missing death cert that won't appear, or the great grandparents jumped over to New York for a year or two, got married there, and then came back to Ireland. So that was fun.
Well, that must be confusing.
Oh yeah, like that's probably the only. Like, it was the one set of great-grandparents I could not find a marriage cert to. And it was thanks to BWB Hour that they just kind of said, have you looked at, it was a combined effort between BWB Hour and Ancestry Hints. I don't usually look at them, but one of them was kind of saying that there was a passenger list for my great-grandmother going over to New York, and there was one for my great-grandfather who went over to New York, and I thought, right, fairly close proximity, probably, it is probably them, was. They went over to New York. Annoyingly, my great-grandmother just came to America a few days after the 1910 census.
No.
Work was done, so she wasn't included in it. It was like I'd say 1 or 2 days later she came in after the census was carried out. I was so annoyed because I'm thinking, I could have her in the census. She's rooted in one place, but that would definitely be one place I'd like to go. And I've been ranting on about one point, and I only realised I've been ranting on for a while. So obviously,
you're right.
You and I don't want to say my opinion at the moment, but do you think, because this is mainly focused on you, do you mainly think that there's kind of enough places or outlets for young people to go to kind of interact with people their own age.
Who are interested in genealogy?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say there's a good amount of places. It's just getting the idea of like putting yourself out there that I think is the big thing. Like I had been doing genealogy for like a while when I just decided one day in, the summer between 8th grade and freshman year to start a genealogy page on Instagram because, why not? And, look what it's turned into. Like I have like I'm part of a blog group. I do all these things, these interviews. So I don't know. I feel like it's just kind of putting yourself out there is the big thing. And I think there's a good amount of places where like young people can like, learn about genealogy and get involved.
Mm.
And I think we're creating a good space too, with our hidden branch community.
Yeah, like it'll take a good bit of work, but we are definitely, getting there. Well, I say
Coming
getting
along, yeah.
Yeah, like we've been going for like it'll be 2 years this October, but we only kind of mainly kind of only got going kind of in April when we welcomed PJ to the team, and then we actually start because obviously being students, it is unfortunately you don't get too long to do genealogy. A lot anyway.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was really the summer when things started taking off and like we started getting more blog posts out. We had more people coming in. That was when I guess the spark sort of, took off.
Yeah. So if anyone has any last minute questions, please do so now, because I'll probably end this here.
Mm.
Oh, so I think this is probably one of the bigger crowds I've definitely had for an interview. So
Oh, awesome.
People are definitely really interested in seeing like young genealogists like you and me doing this. So
yeah, it's definitely unique.
What were you going to say?
I was just saying it's definitely unique seeing people like our age, interested in this sort of thing. You don't find a lot of people like that, or who have an interest in that sort of thing. So
yeah, and like I, I, you'll probably see a good bit of me like for getting young people into genealogy. I don't want to say too much about it because I haven't, it hasn't gone up yet. But I am writing a bit about like young genealogists and related things. Again, if I go into it too much, I'll give the thing away. I don't really want to do it. So without further ado, I'm going to end it here. So thank you, Tyler, for coming along.
Yeah.
You've been a wonderful guest, and I think the general consensus is that Gonzalo, I think he's glad that the thing's is going to be recorded now. So for those who are watching, you may have seen that I had said that I have series 3 planned out. I most certainly do. And it's probably going to be my biggest series yet. I've got a wide variety of guests, and I'm looking forward to it. But don't forget, I still have 2 more interviewees in this series. And I will do the graphic today, and I will announce it today. I am going to do it. That's one thing I really want to do, because I keep saying I'll do it, and then it's like half a week next before I even announce it. So I will end it here.
I'm excited to see who it is.
Yeah. So I will see you all next week, and thanks for coming along.
Thanks for coming, everyone. All right.